I don't think this is something I needed to join the BJP or retire from service to have. When I was, it was Indian Foreign Service, it was not Nehru's Foreign Service. Let's be very clear on that. Most of us who, for example, dealt with China felt that the 1954, that the whole Panchsheel era was a fundamental misreading of China. No, my Vichardhara on Nehru has not changed. I mean, I think in terms of a lot of, do understand what I am trying to say. I am trying to say that in the foreign policy for which Nehru had a predominant role for the first 18 years of our existence, and the assumptions which his successors carried forward, there were some significant shortcomings and flaws and errors of judgment. I don't think this is something I needed to join the BJP or retire from service to have. When I was, it was Indian Foreign Service, it was not Nehru's Foreign Service. Let's be very clear on that. Most of us who, for example, dealt with China felt that the 1954, that the whole Panchsheel era was a fundamental misreading of China. Or if I go back even earlier, and I've actually written about it, the Nehru-Patel debate of how to handle China. So it's not a sentiment any of us, I mean not just me. We didn't need to be out of the government to understand the truth about Nehru. It was staring us in the face. It stared the nation in the face in 1962. I mean, please read the letter that Nehru writes to Kennedy after Bombdila fell, and tell me how you feel about it. That how could our country have been brought down to such a situation where you're begging somebody? So I read that 62 letter 50 years ago, maybe more. So this is not politics. Do not confuse, in the name of politics, it should not be that we should have no judgment and no evaluation of anything in our history. Are we then blind followers of what happened before? Ask yourself that question. Essentially, I can't give you word by word quote, but essentially the Prime Minister said the relations are abnormal and we want to see normalcy, but normalcy will only happen if there's peace and tranquility in the border. Now, I could have said it, this part of it first and that part of it second, or up and down, but essentially we've been saying the same thing for 4 years now. And I don't think the Prime Minister said anything which was a departure from what has been our consistent policy on this issue. And we still say, because, I reiterate it with regularity, because on the Chinese side, there is a continuous attempt to say, well, that peace and tranquility is not so important. That has its place, but there's something bigger out there. If you don't have peace and tranquility, I mean, they keep saying it has a place. I agree, it has a place. It has a central place. So that point, I think, is for us a consistent point, and I don't see any reason why we should change from that. I don't think there's anybody in the government who's suggesting that we should change from it. No right-thinking citizen can suggest we should change from it. After all, if there is no peace and tranquility in the border, how can you have workable relations with any neighbor? I mean, forget China. The second issue on the economic issue. See, there are two parts to it. One part of it is straightforward economic, where you have a country whose manufacturing practices, I think, put the rest of the world at a disadvantage. and we are entirely within our rights to ensure that our manufacturers, particularly our SMEs and our labor, our working classes, their interests are protected. Because we believe this did not happen in the past. That we believe today, I get a lot of lectures about, in this globalized world, why are you being so protected? I will take whatever defenses I have to do in the interest of the working class of India. Their jobs are at stake. People who give this lecture are not connected with the real economy and the real society. As someone who spends a lot of time with SMEs, who's lived in Noida for much of my life, I can tell you how strong that sense of resentment is today about dumping of goods from China. So we will do what it takes. The second is there are sensitive sectors. Every country today has the right to manage its sensitive sectors in a way in which it is in consonance with its national security. So the idea, and a lot of the globalization advocates, I think, need a basic lesson in national security. I cannot, in the name of open economy, open up my national security, that to a country which is laying claim on my territory. It sort of stares us in the face. So I'm actually astonished sometimes at the arguments that I hear, that somewhere we are doing, something which is harmful to our economy. I think actually both our economic security and our national security is at stake. And in terms of, how do you, where do you open up? Look, it's not like we are close to China. There are still economic transactions which are taking place. But economic transactions do require, in today's world, do require diligence, do require scrutiny, do require examination. Don't buy this line that somewhere, great good will come out of free flows. If developed economies can be hollowed out in the way in which they have been hollowed out, what do you think will happen to you if you follow in that same path? We're not going to make that mistake.